This is a really exciting turnout, everyone. We already have 40 people on and we're 2 minutes past. So it's good to see how much interest there is in MHPSS. We've been trying to have this thematic call, I think, for 2 calls now. So I'm glad to see that it's finally happening. And the Carmen from the MHPSS reference group is joining us and has again reminded us that the MHPSS reference group really wants to work closely with the GBV AoR and the members. So just to pass that positive energy along. And I think, I'm guessing, oh wow, we have 58 already. Whoa. We're becoming like one of those big hotshot webinars. So I think we'll go ahead and start because we have 58 people. We want to appreciate that you all arrived on time. So we have an exciting agenda and we're going to start, I think you all received it in your MailChimp yesterday in the mailing. We're going to start hearing from the GBV Ims, and that is going to be with Erin, Gerber, and Virginia Zuco Silva. And we're going to ask everyone, because of the shortage of time, this is a very packed agenda, if you can write during the presentation any questions that come to you, if you can write them in the chat instead of raising them verbally, just because that will save us a lot of time. And then the speakers will be able to respond to the questions that are in the chat. So I think in interest of time, that way we'll have more time to hear the responses. And if you also just want to make comments in the chat, you're welcome to do that as well. And we will read the question out loud to the presenter so that if you're listening from your phone or something that you're not able to see the chat, you will hear the question. And I guess then if the only way you can ask a question is to say it, then please raise your hand. So we're going to start. I'm going to give the floor to Erin Gerber and Virginia Zuco Silva to discuss the GBV Ims. And welcome. Virginia, you're on mute, I think.
I just caught that.
Okay, great. Just so we can start that way, that famous line, you're on mute. Okay.
Great way to start. I won't keep my video on the whole time since we have a short presentation to walk you through, but I thought I would just turn it on to introduce myself. So I'm Virginia Zuco, for those that don't know me, and I'm a GBV case management specialist with UNICEF. I'll let Erin introduce herself and then we'll kick off.
Hi, everyone. I'm Erin Gerber. I'm a GBV case management specialist with UNFPA.
Great. I'm going to turn my video off and I'm going to share my screen. So hopefully everybody can see this. Jennifer, can you confirm that you can see my screen?
Yes, we can. It's perfect.
Okay, great. So as this call today is focused on MHPSS, Erin and I are here to talk a little bit about the GBV Ims work stream on GBV case management, to share a little bit about what we've been doing over the last few years and how it links with the rest of our GBV Ims work stream, which is obviously, as we're as the GBV Ims global team is a little more known, focused on safe and ethical data collection and storage. So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of a background or timeline that kind of links our streams of work. So in 2014, the GBV Ims global team led a global evaluation of our GBV Ims system. And one of the really interesting things that came out of that evaluation was actually a need for guidance and capacity building on GBV case management, either before or during a GBV Ims rollout. So this evaluation prompted multiple requests for a tool that could kind of guide caseworkers throughout the steps of GBV case management. And it was kind of interesting because, as we always talk about, the GBV Ims exists for data collection in the cadre of service provision. So it wasn't totally surprising, but it kind of aligned. But that's one of the things that, interestingly enough, came out of this evaluation. So from 2014 to 2016, thanks to funding from the government of Canada, the GBV-IMS global team spearheaded a project to conduct more thorough assessments on GBV case management needs and develop country-specific strategies to address those. And one of the things that really came out of those assessments was the need for global guidance on how to deliver GBV case management in humanitarian settings. Similarly, around the same time, talks had actually started as early as 2012, but closer to 2015, Primero was developed. And for those that might not be completely familiar, Primero is a digital tool that houses both CP-IMS Plus, as we call it, and GBV-IMS Plus. So for those that know our legacy system, it's paper-based. All the forms like the intake form are paper-based, and then we have a database that's Excel-based, and Primero is our digital tool. So it's online on the laptop or on a tablet or mobile device. And it does more than just incident monitoring data collection. It's also a full case management tool. So it houses forms that walk through all the steps of GBV case management. So around the same time that we're doing these capacities assessments and this needs assessment around GBV case management, we're also working on developing a digital tool that does both sides of the spectrum. So the data collection side, and then also more supporting the case management side. The 2-year capacity assessment project culminated thanks to funding from, at the time, often now BHA, in the release of the 2017 Interagency GBV Case Management Guidelines, which for those that are very familiar with them, were long awaited by the community and are the first full guidance that specifically provides global standards on how to provide GBV case management in humanitarian settings. Following the release of the guidelines, UNICEF was able to garner funding once again from VHA to develop a case management capacity building initiative. What preceded that a little bit were pilot projects in Mali, Somalia, and Nigeria that were complemented by in-country funding. And then as a result of those, we were able to implement what is now the Case Management Capacity Building Initiative, which is in essence rolling out those interagency GBV case management guidelines in 5 additional countries. In 2019, so at the same time that we're building capacity on GBV case management and rolling out the guidelines, we had our first GBV-IMS Plus interagency rollouts. And so again, this UNICEF led the development of Primero, but GBV-IMS Plus is an interagency tool. And so these were the first 3 interagency rollouts that provided these first 3 contexts with this digital tool that accompanies caseworkers through the whole case management process, while also still allowing for GBV data collection and safe storage. To continue and sort of like linking our streams of work in 2020 after the COVID-19 pandemic hit all of us, the GBV-IMS global team also developed a series. It's a podcast and video short series that's still on our website on various considerations for transitioning to remote case management, which kind of led the foundation for what eventually became a much wider collaboration that included the GBV, AoR, as well as NCA, Plan International and TroCare, and which is the released remote GBV case management guidelines. So these were guidelines that were released in April of this year on phone-based case management and hotlines in the context of COVID-19. That the GBV-IMS technical team also supported the development of. And then bringing us closer to where we are today, we've continued to expand our GBV-IMS Plus interagency rollouts to several new contexts. and continue to have plans that continue to integrate these two streams of work around data, but also case management as we continue to look ahead. And Erin in a little bit is going to talk to you guys a little bit about what's pipeline. And just to note to say that we are still supporting the rollout of our legacy system, so our paper-based system. One example is that we are actually in the process of planning a rollout for Armenia. When a context isn't quite ready for a digital tool, we still go back to our classic sort of paper-based tool. So before I hand over to Erin, just to give you a quick snapshot, the GBV Case Management Capacity Building Initiative was really well received. And we are fairly proud of it and feel like it was very successful. The approach aimed at building an in-country pool of expertise. So it wasn't just a traditional go in and train people and leave. It was a longer initiative that culminated with a training of trainers where, based on criteria, we certified trainers to make up an in-country pool of trainers, and then all the various pools of trainers from the countries where we've implemented make up the wider global pool of GBV case management trainers that we still engage with. We provide quarterly coaching sessions to that pool of trainers. So up until the end of last year, we had implemented in 8 countries. And then actually this year, 2 different countries have implemented thanks to funding on their own. So as of today, about 285 individuals have participated in these case management training of trainers through the Case Management Capacity Building Initiative. And 177 individuals have been certified and make up our global pool of trainers. We've done 4 quarterly coaching sessions to date that range from case management with adolescent girls to supervision and case management. And we'll be focusing our next one on PSEA. I'll wrap up just by saying that we conducted a periodic review that led to the development of a rollout strategy. So we actually have sort of an implementation guide for this initiative, which has already been picked up and used by 2 countries as of this year. So that brings me to an end, and I'll hand over to you, Erin.
Great, thank you. I don't think I can share my screen until you stop sharing yours.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, so I will just take us into these initiatives we have planned for this year. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Wonderful. Okay, thanks so much. So basically there's 2 kind of main initiatives that we're focused on for this year going into the next year, which is the GBV-CBI, the Case Management Capacity Building Initiative, as well as e-learnings. The GBV-CBI will be rolled out in 12 new countries this year and repeated in another one. The technical team supported country-led rollouts in collaboration with the regs in Burkina Faso and the Gambia earlier this year. And because of challenges related to staff turnover, another GBV case management TOT will be done with the Riga in Libya, thanks to the funds that they were able to mobilize in country. UNFPA will lead in 4 countries through BHA funding, leveraging the IASC PSEAH championship this year into the next year. And UNICEF will lead in 3 countries, also through BHA funding, focusing on women-led organizations. And there's funding from Japan that has been given through UN Action for the GBV-CBI to be rolled out in Iraq, Jordan, and Lebanon. So it's really exciting to see this work continue. Also, we'll be continuing ongoing quarterly coaching sessions for the pool of trainers. And as trainers kind of finish and get certified, like in Burkina Faso and the Gambia, they're able to join those quarterly coaching sessions. So it's been really exciting to see that, especially in our last session last month. And then there's 2 GBV case management related e-learning courses. The GBV Ims plus e-learning was finished as of Q2 this year in 2021. And this trains participants on the GBV Ims plus through the lens of GBV case management service provision. So how the GBV Ims plus facilitates the steps of GBV case management. And then there's the GBV case management e-learning that's based on the 2017 Interagency GBV case management guidelines. And I'll provide a little bit more detail on that. There were discussions about e-learning that was prompted by the limited number of people available to do the trainings, and then COVID hit, all of this sort of culminating into the development of the GBV case management e-learning that's now underway. This is a self-paced online program that can be completed per module or as a whole course, individually guided with a cohort or as a complement to other capacity building activities. It will be translated into Arabic, French, and Spanish to support the rollout and pilots that we have through the GBV-CM CBI that are currently planned. There is an interagency GBV case management e-learning reference group that is made up of members of the technical team. And it's pretty much 13 modules, including scripts and storybooks. And there's a multimedia platform that's already under development. We've recruited 22 volunteer narrators, some of you on this call that we're so thankful for, from all 6 regions that are currently narrating the scripts. So we're really excited about the diversity of voices that will be there. This e-learning also includes a module on GBV case management with survivors of sexual exploitation and abuse. This is being designed based on feedback that has been garnered through 65 consultations with 172 GBV and PSEA experts in 23 countries to inform the content and design on GBV case management with survivors of sexual exploitation and abuse. So this is linked to our PSEAH championship, and a workshop will be hosted at the end of September to share findings and present the module. So if you're interested in feeding in, please do feel free to contact me. I'll put my email address in the chat, or you can put your email address in the chat and I'll reach out to you. The aim is to launch the English version of the e-learning in October of 2022 with translations complete by the end of the year. So that is the end of our presentation. If anybody has any questions, we'll be happy to answer those.
So I haven't seen any questions written in the chat, but if you have a question, I know not everyone can use the chat, please ask it now. So I guess the presentation was very clear. You can also, as Erin mentioned, she'll be putting her email in the chat. I think Virginia can put hers there as well. So if you have any follow-up questions, then I know they're willing to answer questions in the chat, but they can also, if you want to send them an email and ask them directly, and especially if you're in a country and you want to know more about if this is something you could look at for your own subcluster coordination group, or communicate to frontline responders or whoever is appropriate for, then you can write directly to Erin and Virginia. So last chance for a question. Okay. So then we are going to go on to our next presenter, Anne from UNFPA, who is head of communications for the Humanitarian Office. And she's going to be presenting on the Time to Heal campaign that she is currently organizing. And then we'll have time again for questions and answers. So please, during her presentation, if you have questions, write them in the chat. And I am going to turn it over to Anne. Anne, are you actually, I haven't actually seen Anne online. Anne, are you there? Shiva, have you been in contact with Anne?
Yes, but I haven't seen her on the call either. I sent the message, but no response. Maybe we can move to the next one. And
Yeah,
if she joins, we will give her time.
Okay, so I just sent her a WhatsApp, so that's strange. Okay, So not to spring this on you suddenly, Paula, but are you available and ready to start your presentation?
Yes, ready.
Okay, great. So we'll go with you and then we'll go back to Anne when she joins. So Paula Ramirez is part of our GBV AoR team. And thanks to IOM, who has supported her as part of the support to the GBV AoR, we were able to, during COVID, noticing the huge level of additional burden and stress created during the COVID pandemic, which is still ongoing. We hired Paula to support frontline responders or first responders using mindfulness and wellness. And she's going to talk today about what she's been learning during the sessions and the impact that it's had on participants' lives. And just to, she'll probably name the countries that she's done it in. But also for those of you who are online representing subcluster working groups, if you're interested in having Paula or talking to her more about having a group in your country, then please let us know by email and we'll have her get in touch with you to discuss in greater depth what she's doing. So I will turn it over to you, Paula.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you so much for the introduction. And yeah, so good to be here sharing with you all what we have been doing for staff care and wellness. Yeah, so before I start, I just wanted all of us to, for a moment, take a moment to come here and to land into this next session of our call. Yes, if we can just take a moment to give room to the transition. Yes, from the presentation that we just had and for the one that's coming, we can just give room to that and being together, even though we cannot see each other. Yes, knowing that we're here. As I start sharing my screen. Yeah, so let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can see.
Thank you, Khaled. Great. So as Jennifer was saying, the concern and why I started doing this job is the MHPSS GBV frontline workers feeling exhaustion and burnout at work, mostly under COVID-19 response. And yeah, the other concern was how to improve the quality of MHPSS service for GBV survivors under current circumstances. Yes. And what we did and the work that I'm doing is based on an 8-week sensitive mindfulness-based stress reduction program. Mindfulness being the ability of the mind to come into the present, moment to moment. Yes, just being able to be with life in every moment. Yes, which may sound easy. Yes, but it is not. So that needs time and practice and training over time. That's why we do it on 8 weeks. Yes. And sensitive is the possibility of including somatic body work to facilitate the experience of the mind coming suddenly to the present. Yes. It's not true that for all of us, the experience of coming to the present is an enjoyable thing. Yes, mostly when we ask the whole system to stop after being under a lot of hecticness. Yes, so it's just a way in which slowly making that shift towards coming to the present. Where and who we have worked with? Yes, we have worked with groups of 20 to 25 or less, like 15 GBV-MHPSS first responders from the GBV subclusters. We have worked in Iraq, Bangladesh, Nigeria, Venezuela, Colombia, Ecuador, Yemen with the GBV AoR coordination group, with Myanmar and Pakistan. Yes, with this first group with Iraq, Bangladesh, Nigeria, and Venezuela. Venezuela, no, it's coming. We are working on a second phase to apply basic mindfulness practices for them, like in the field. and taking into account this sensitive perspective, because it's not about just relaxation, but just as well being very sensitive about how to translate these practices into the field in a careful way. I had a slide here, but I don't see it there. But it was a slide that was about the modifications that we have made, yes. And the main modifications we have made are around really listening to the group needs, yes. So everything and the method shifts and changes according to the group and the situation, yes. So just to give an example, with Yemen, we worked a lot during Ramadan time, yes, and at some point the group said, why don't we work during the night time, yes, after we break the fasting, so that we can be with that, and we changed the experience, yes, for them to have space to be with their families, and to be with the awareness of breaking the fasting, and with the ritual that was there as well, and the possibility to gather together, since they were not able to actually be with each other physically. With Venezuela, we also made like a small shift with a group of women, and we started giving room to their menstrual cycle as well. Colombia, with all the strikes and the violence that spread up the past months, it was also important to have the group to support, yes. So it's always the modifications again are about really being able to listen to what the group really is needing, yes, and to be able to support the situation that the group is living, and being able to support some specific persons at any given time that need the group support. And again, cultivating the possibility of having these emotional resources to be with the situations that they are living in. Another thing that is important, and I feel like mentioning now, is the dedicated work that we do with interpreters. So with Iraq, we had two groups, yes, and the second group was with translation, and there was a lot of time really given to the translator for her to understand that, again, it's not only about relaxation practices, but it's about people being able to be with the circumstances that they are living under, yes, with more grace and dignity, yes. So I feel like sharing voices from the field, yes, that can give us a little bit more perspective about the impact that this has had for them. So this is a person from Ecuador, and she said, I can recognize how everything passed when fully living the experience of my body. In the experience of my body, I can live through the situations and I can start again. To have love for oneself is having the awareness that everything passes. Yeah, so this again is giving us a perspective around this not just being a relaxation, which of course is, but is this possibility of going into yourself and really knowing yourself so that you can be aware of the choices that you can make. Yes, there's this one like talks very good about that choice. Yes, she says she's from Iraq, and she says, I was trying to get everything I need because tomorrow is lockdown and the traffic was huge. I had to pick up my daughters. Even during traffic, everything was taking forever. I could feel myself wanting to scream or like, come on, or rushing maybe to fix it. Then I remembered to pause, checked my body, and could see myself looking at someone I know. Someone who sometimes could think to be angry, impatient, quickly frustrated to fix a situation. But does it really fix anything? When I saw this autopilot person, which is of course herself, I realized I can choose to be fully with the situation, and that brought calmness. Yes, I was late. I opened Zoom while driving, but it was better than being just angry and unable to listen to anything. So I think this really speaks loud about this possibility of choice. Yes, how much choice do we have in daily life? How much really are we able to, again, be with and be more attentive to the experience of our life, and again, the choices that we have. This is another one from Bangladesh. She say, being able to understand that giving time for myself is not selfish in such difficult times as the ones that we're living in, when everything seems to ask so much from me, is the most important act of love and care for myself and others. So this possibility of, again, giving time for oneself and the awareness of that. So yeah, and this is a last voice that I want to share with you, which gives a perspective as well around how this has an impact in the kind of work that is given in the field. Yes, this is a voice from Venezuela. She says, I understand my role in accompanying people. My intervention starts from the certainty of existence. I am here, and as such is the balm for people. I know my presence can bring relief and hope. Understanding that their stories of pain are theirs, I can empathize, but I'm not them. Because if I make their stories my own, it spoils the very essence of the support I can give. Breathe to listen and offer the proper response. So if we don't have, like room for ourselves, yes, it's very difficult to have room for others and for the work that we deliver in the field as MHPSS front responders. Yes. So yes, I think I went a minute. I went over my presentation a bit, but
you did great, Paula. Don't worry, you're on time.
Okay.
So.
Yeah, I was like time. Yes. So this is the work that we have been doing, and we have evaluated it. If you're interested, we can send the results. But I just felt that it was good to share just the voices from the field. Yes, here, just to be able to name the impact that the program has had. So yeah, if you have any question or comments that you want to make, if there's anyone here, I don't know, it's 84 people here. I don't know if anyone has taken the course with me. If you feel that you want to say something about your experience.
So any question or comment, or if anyone on the call has been part of the experience that they want to share another voice from the field, now is your opportunity to speak up. We have a very quiet group today so far. And just to say, sort of, we made the decision to share the voices from the field and the impact, but if you have questions about the actual sort of topics week to week, or you're interested in more in-depth details of the sort of technical side, you can write to Paula. She'll put her email in the chat. And if you're part of a working group, GBV working group in the field, and you're interested to learn more, to see if this is something you might be interested in doing in your country, then also, yeah, so we have Erin writing that there are, I think, a couple of sessions through in Myanmar that it's highly recommended. And there's Paula's email in the chat, so you can write to her directly. And if you want to have more information, or if you want to receive a copy of the evaluation that's been done so far from the University of Australia, we're happy to share that as well. So here's one question. This is always the complicated
Andrea,
one.
yes.
Wondering if you
Yeah.
envision, I'll read it out in case you don't have the chat on your apparatus. So wondering if you envision sort of TOTs in countries so attendees could reach more people in their respective contexts. So this is something definitely we've been reflecting on. A lot of people want to know how can they replicate. And so this is something that we're still thinking about, but I'll let Paula respond. And I don't think we have time for any other questions, but if you have a question, please write it in the chat and Paula can follow up either answering in the chat or sending it to you, responding to you directly. And so Paula, you want to answer the question about the TOTs?
Yes, thank you, Jennifer. Andrea, thanks for the question. Yes, so we did a small, not a TOT, because to take the whole program as it is takes more time to really integrate what the practice is as such. But what we have done is a small 6 weeks course where we integrate some very basic mindfulness practices so that they can take them and understand them and have space in the group to share in a safe space and to be able to practice in a safe space so that they really understand what the essence of it is, because it's not just making people breathe. Yes. So we have done that, and with Jennifer and with the group, with the team, we are also thinking about how is it that it would make sense to make a full TOT. Yes. So thanks for that question, and thanks Constance for your comment, and Carmen. We're working in the guidelines for staff care at country level, and it's always interesting to consider the spectrum from this person-centered care to the need to address human resources and management aspects of staff care. It would be great to hear about the evaluation. Thank you, Carmen. I will make sure to send it to you if you're interested. Thank you, everyone.
Jennifer, you're on mute, sorry.
Thank you. Just to quickly say, the second level that was more taking a deeper dive into understanding how the techniques work. We combined Nigeria, Bangladesh, and Iraq, and that was a really interesting experience, I think, for the participants to hear that the issues that they were dealing with, especially during COVID, that there were a lot of commonalities, and spreading across those diverse regions, I think was really enriching for all of the participants. And just to say, it's part of that silver lining that it would not have been possible if we were meeting in person. And I think it's really strengthened a number of teams as well. For example, Venezuela, where the women were from different departments of the country who, where transportation is very difficult and gas is very expensive. And then the COVID lockdown, it meant that people even from the same organization were able to meet and bond, and that facilitated stronger work in other areas of the response that they were providing. So just a lot of interesting outcomes that weren't necessarily anticipated, but that have been shown. So thank you, Paula. And we're going to move now on to Anne, who is online. So Anne is from UNFPA, and she's going to present the mindfulness, sorry, I'm reading the wrong place. She's going to present the Time to Heal campaign that UNFPA is leading on, and she's from the communications of the humanitarian office. And so I will give her the space to present, and then if you have questions, you'll be able to ask them afterwards. So moving on to you, Anne.
Thank you very much. And I just want to give a shout out to Paula too, because that is one of our advocacy asks, is caring for the caregivers. And it's so important. So let me just get onto this. This is a campaign that we are preparing to launch. And it is the Time to Heal campaign. And it's a global campaign to raise awareness, and mainly the focus is on women and adolescent girls, but also young people, as we see more and more the needs. And let me see. How do I shift the thing? Okay, so we see worldwide that one person's displaced every 2 seconds. The rate of displacement is increasing as humanitarian crises expand. And 1 in every 33 people needs humanitarian assistance and protection today. That's quite a large and alarming number. And the destruction is easy to see, but what we're really looking at here is damage inside to people's emotions, and the way that they're feeling and the way that they're experiencing this loss, trauma, grief, etc., whatever it is that's happening to them and their loved ones. And we did see that Lancet study, the impact of traumatic events. This is in conflict settings. And by mental health condition, that can range from compounded stress to anxiety to depression to PTSD. And we all see, working with GBV survivors, some of the horrible things that they go through, especially in conflict settings. This was a young Yazidi woman who was taken as a sex slave. This is the Deputy Secretary General, just outlining some of the manifestations of survivors of gender-based violence, specifically here, sexual violence. Also, we see that harmful practices such as child marriage can also cause lasting damage and rob people of their full potential. And then, of course, it's also an issue of bodily autonomy. This right, as we know, is routinely violated in conflicts and disasters where we see the risks of gender-based violence increase. And then for young people, we see the high rates of suicide, and particularly high for adolescent girls and women. And because of all the gender dimensions, gender inequality, gender-based violence. And then, of course, we've seen rising rates, as we have with GBV, with the need for psychosocial support for mental well-being, as it takes such a toll on people's coping strategies, and especially on health workers, social workers, 70% of whom globally are women. And that's why we're calling for time to heal. The concept from this is in part from healing, empowerment, and recovery. The way ahead is portrayed and articulated in the guidance, the minimum standards for gender-based violence for response. So we're hoping to ignite a movement and get a lot of partners on board. We have had an expert meeting and we have met individually with partners. And the focus of this is unique through a gender lens. And of course, I know IRC is also, Gretchen will be speaking more today about Women Rise and their MHPSS guidelines. And so it's very good that all of this is happening at the same time, because it needs increased attention and support from everyone, actually. So now this is a global advocacy campaign. It's to raise awareness and support for a gender-based approach to psychosocial support, mental well-being. Here are some of our campaign principles: healing, empowerment, and recovery, gender responsive, age sensitive, focus on human rights, dignity, justice, equality. Of course, we have to focus on peace too. We know that peace can bring so much relief in terms of how people are responding, especially in a conflict. And we know justice also is very healing. So the idea of the integrated services is very important. Do no harm. We realize as feminists that much harm has been done historically to women, especially those who challenge gender norms, patriarchal values, that they have been violated in terms of very coercive forms of mental health treatment. And we also focus on localization and leadership and leave no one behind. We know that local women's groups, local communities know best what's happening in their communities and thus are often most effective in these areas of service provision and providing psychosocial support, as they can also speak the language, and so they then need support themselves and funding. So campaign objectives, we want to increase awareness of the gendered impact. We want to raise the visibility of the needs. And of course, for UNFPA, we're working to integrate MHPSS as a cross-cutting issue. And we are doing that on a widespread basis, of course, in our GBV response, and increasingly also with SRH response. We want to increase support for this through resources. And we want to engage a wide range of stakeholders because we do believe that we will have a bigger impact by partnership and working together. So we want to expand advocacy and collaboration. We have 5 key asks. These were developed through our expert meeting and through consultations. One is to strengthen capacity for a gender responsive approach to MHPSS. One is to support localization through the process. One is to increase resources, human resources and financial resources. One is caring for caregivers to ensure that these services are continuous and are maintained, and to avoid burnout so that these services are effective. And one is to advance research in this area to provide a strong evidence base for programs, etc. This was what a Rohingya volunteer said at the Cox's Bazar camp in Bangladesh. We are in this together and we can support each other. We must share and lift the burden of all the trauma. Of course, we recognize the inherent resilience and strength of women, of kinship, of solidarity. And that is something that we build on. And anyone who can survive these conditions has inner strength to build on. So basically advocate and mobilize, build, train workers, strengthen capacity, advance policy. UNFPA just did adopt a new MHPSS policy with all of these things in mind in April. So of course we're building on that and advancing from there for our humanitarian work, engaging communities, expand funding and services. So here we have the policy was adopted April. We're developing campaign assets, virtual launch in 2021 in September, hopefully. And the expert meeting wasn't on here, but we did have expert meeting and consultations. I think we started in June and July. Those were held. So that is the campaign. We also have other materials. We have started drafting a communications media packet, and I can share that with everyone and all the other materials if everyone is interested. So now I open the floor to questions. Oh yeah, this was just for UNFPA role of communications. But anyway, so the wound is the place where light enters. I'd like to end with that quote from the poet Rumi. It speaks to hope and resilience. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne. And just in the chat, Catherine Poulton from UNICEF has written that she's appreciating the GBV angle to MHPSS. So kudos from UNICEF. So if there are any questions, I know some of you attended the expert meeting that was just mentioned by Anne, but if you have any questions about how you might engage in this campaign or any more, if you're asking about any more details, of course, we can also connect you to Anne if you're interested. But we do have a little bit of time for this discussion. So I don't know if anyone has a question, feel free to speak up and not use the chat.
Go ahead, and while you're thinking of a question, I'd just like to give you more of an update on concrete steps that we're taking moving forward and some of the materials that we have available. We do have a draft joint statement, and we're hoping to get partners to sign on that, and we'll even extend that to national and local partners. We do, and that's basically citing the need, the rising need for these services, for the gender responsive approach, for integration with other, well, for us, it's protection and health, but integration of these services into existing work, and for the 5 key advocacy asks and committing to that. And so we will be, I can share that draft joint statement. People can have input into that. We also have a brief where we outline the next steps. We will formulate a steering committee of the key partners who will be also at the launch event. And we do have people who have already signaled their commitment to this. We did have a MHPSS site event during the high level, the humanitarian affairs segment of ECOSOC recently held. And at the opening of that site event, the co-chair of the IASC Mental Health and Psychosocial Support Reference Group, FAMI, from WHO, stressed WHO's commitment to this campaign and called on everyone to join and support this campaign. So we do have WHO on board, Red Cross Movement, CARE International, Compact for Young People in Humanitarian Action, and others. So we're very excited, and we're very excited for others to join, because we believe that the time is right for this, and that we can also learn a lot from each other and advance this work together, building upon all the good work that's already being done.
So Anne, there's a question about sharing the MHPSS UNFPA policy. If that's something that can be shared, we will include it in the documentation of this call and send it out with the minutes.
Okay.
Make it available with the recording. And then Catherine, I'm going to let you ask your question, because I think it'd be great, Catherine, if you say the full names of the different acronyms that you're mentioning. So I'll let you ask the question.
Sure, can you hear me well?
Yes, perfect.
Yes, thank you.
Great. So yeah, this is really exciting. Thanks for sharing it. And as I say, it's really cool to see, GBV being included fully in any MHPSS agenda. So really appreciate that. I did want to know how this was linking up to some of the initiatives that we've actually already heard from. So for example, the case management capacity building initiative, that's a fundamental part of MHPSS for GBV. The minimum service package, I think that's the right terminology for it, that's coming out, that has a GBV component. Because often when I talk to MHPSS colleagues, and here I'm speaking broadly, they don't know about the CMCBI, for example, or, so I just really interested in making sure that we connect all those dots so that we're actually showing what we are doing as a global community. Over.
Thank you, Catherine. I'm glad you brought that up. What we have noticed is that some of this work has remained invisible to the MHPSS community. And so one of the objectives of the campaign is to raise visibility and raise awareness, because of course, if you look at the IASC guidelines and that pyramid for MHPSS that was created in 2007, the IASC guidelines on MHPSS, you'll see that various levels of the pyramid, and of course, all the way up to specialized care for which referrals are necessary. But that the bottom levels of the pyramid, of course, are a lot of the work that's being done within the GBV community. And so one of the gaps that has been is that the communities haven't interacted together as much as possible. And when the reports are made, showcasing the work that's done for psychosocial support, et cetera, mental well-being, the work that's being done within the GBV community is not reflected. And so one of the objectives also, of course, is to make this work more visible and to gain an appreciation within that community of the work that's being done, and to have increased collaboration between the two communities to learn from each other and fill this gap, this invisibility gap that has existed, unfortunately, and is not necessary. So now that we see such a rise in the need for MHPSS, and of course in the GBV, you've always seen it, but it's being recognized more and more. It's very important for this work to be considered both GBV response and psychosocial support within that MHPSS framework. So I'm also aware that even with IRC, because we do note that when you look at the, I believe they're called the 4W reports that are put out by the MHPSS community of all the work that's being done within countries in this area to support affected populations with their psychosocial needs and their mental well-being, that oftentimes, I know UNFPA is very rarely mentioned despite the work we're doing, and I'm sure that others, the work they're doing in this arena is also not visible. And so by linking up together, we will be able to showcase more the scope, breadth, and reach of this work that's going on, both within the GBV community and within the MHPSS community, to try to close that gap just through increased collaboration, communication, et cetera. So, so with regard to MSP, of course, we're working with the minimum service package. The two leaders of that, as you know, are WHO and UNICEF. Also engaged now are UNHCR and UNFPA. UNFPA is keen on bringing that gender responsive approach to the minimum service package through the pilots that are going on, and also through the work with the GBV colleagues, SRH colleagues, in the work that we're doing. And so we've also reached out on the SRH front to the International Confederation of Midwives, and we're hopeful that they will join also the campaign, because we see that even when some of the GBV response services are provided by health workers, such as clinical management of rape, utilizing the post-rape treatment kits, of course, that's another area where the psychosocial support comes into play. So it's just a matter of connecting the dots, making work visible, supporting each other, learning from each other, with the view to be able to scale up this work to meet the rising needs. So thank you very much, Catherine, for that question. I think it's actually a very important question. And I think there's been a lot of debate about it. And I'm hopeful that by coming together, we'll be able to shine the work that we're doing, that is taking place, and hopefully will continue to expand through this campaign and partnership. So I hope that answers your question. Jennifer, you're muted.
Yep, I see that. Thank you so much, Anne, and thank you for the question, Catherine. We still have a couple more minutes if there's any other comment or question that people want to make. I did just reach out to Stephanie, who's really been supporting a lot the minimum service package. And so I think after Saba and John present on the objectives of the new process of forming MHPSS task team, I'm going to ask Stephanie to respond a bit more about the process that has taken place and the advocacy that's been going on for the minimum service package, as following the presentation by John and Saba. So is there anything else in relation? Anne, do you want to just put your contact information in the chat so that if there's organizations online that this is the first time they're hearing about the campaign and they want to get involved, that they can write to you directly? And then any material that you want to share through our MailChimp, including if you want to share the UNFPA new mental health framework, then we can do that with the MailChimp and with the follow-up to this call.
Okay, here's my contact. I'm giving both my email and my mobile phone.
Okay, and you also have Constance from UNHCR saying that she'd be happy to have UNHCR supporting.
That's great. Thank you, Constance. That's very exciting news. We're getting super excited about this because people do see that it's timely and needed, and it's really also a partnership platform.
And you have a concept note, right, Anne, that we could share? Maybe that would be helpful.
I have so many things. I think what's best is if I just have a time to to put them all together and send them to you, Jennifer, and you can share them, because that way I won't have to send it and then, oh, I forgot this, I forgot that. So I want to share what we do have in full transparency.
Okay, and we have Sophia, who's our subcluster coordinator, recently arrived to Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, and she was oh, I hope I got that right. Now I'm seeing, saying that the biggest number of self-referrals for GBV survivors, the Rohingyas, is on MHPSS. And she recently came from working in Haiti. So I think there's a lot of positive feedback here coming out in the chat. So
thank
we're
you,
actually
Jennifer, and also Jennifer, thank you for giving me the opportunity to present here to the GBV AoR. And I'm very impressed with the GBV AoR and all the work that you're doing. So this is really important. It's an honor for me to present to everyone.
It's a pleasure to have you here, and we're happy. We hope that you can remain on the rest of the call, but if you have to jump off, we understand. So I'm going to now hand over to John Dullinger, who, if you have been in the field for a while, you will remember him as being very active as a national subcluster coordinator in Erbil in Iraq, where he did a lot of good work of mainstreaming GBV into other clusters. And he noticed, sorry, John, to tell your little story here, but he noticed the big gap that existed for MHPSS services, and left humanitarian work to go back to school and get a degree in clinical, I think, psychology, but he can correct me if I'm wrong, and has returned now with this new skill set. And he is, if you aren't aware, he's spending some of his weekly work time seconded by NCA to support the GBV AoR. And then also Saba, who is part of WHO, and they have some really interesting GBV work going on within WHO, funded by PRM. So the two of them have agreed to co-chair a new MHPSS task team, which is what they're going to share about now. So we're very excited. I think it's been a couple of years of us talking about what kind of form should an MHPSS or a PSS task team take, and part of the terms of reference will be to interact with the MHPSS reference group. I mentioned earlier that Carmen's on the call, and I think this is a goal of both the reference group and the GBV AoR to see how to work together to make the GBV focused PSS work more visible, and to help the MHPSS actors better understand the importance of having a GBV perspective or approach, survivor-centered approach in the work, that is being critical, which we don't often see. And so, you know, I think that having this working group is going to be very useful, but I will turn it over to Saba and John to talk about the creation of this new task team within the AoR. Over to you, Saba and John.
Sorry, I just want to interrupt. Could you just give Carmen 1 second? She just wanted to comment, I think, on the time to heal before we go over to that.
Okay, sure. I didn't see that, but yes, I see it now.
No,
ahead,
it's okay.
Erin.
You just introduced very nicely. So let's go with this, and I'll talk at the end. It's okay.
Okay, so Carmen,
Okay,
at
thanks,
the end, we'll
Carmen.
leave you a few minutes at the end. Great. So over to you, Saba and John.
Thank you, Jen, for that lovely introduction. John and I are going to take just a few moments to briefly review the vision behind the task team, common thematic areas of interest expressed by the AoR member organizations, about the establishment of the task team, and next steps for organizations that would wish to join. The group is intended as a space in which we can tackle big questions around bridging the gap between GBV and MHPSS sectors and actors, so that we can work together better. Our hope is that the task team will not only tackle some GBV specific and MHPSS issues, but offer a channel for stronger engagement with global and country level MHPSS coordination structures, including, as Jen mentioned, the IASC MHPSS reference group. And again, thanking Carmen for being present on this call. The GBV AoR polled core members about the establishment of a GBV and MHPSS task team in 2020, and the response was overwhelmingly positive. As a preparatory exercise, we have carried out consultations with organizations that expressed an interest in joining the task team in May and June of this year, and a total of 7 organizations participated. Unsurprisingly, we heard a range of perspectives about what needs this task team could potentially address for the GBV sector as a whole and for individual organizations in humanitarian emergencies. And I'll hand over to John now to discuss a little bit more some of the themes and outcomes emerging from the consultation exercise.
Great, thanks, Saba, and hi, everyone. So this group will really look to build off the work of the GBV minimum standards and the MHPSS minimum service package and all those other great initiatives that have been reported on, and allow us to have some of these conversations that may need to be continued. So the overall aim will be to capture key operational and technical challenges that partners are facing, strengthen the coordination, quality, and effectiveness of GBV preparedness and response, and really harmonize all those efforts to identify, promote, and support implementation of MHPSS interventions for survivors. So really kind of broadly, 3 themes emerged from the consultations that we'll take into our first meeting. And the first one is around promoting and supporting the development and use of guidance on MHPSS for GBV survivors in humanitarian settings. The second is around sharing lessons learned and good practices, both within this group and also to the wider community, hopefully through some creative means. And then the third is around, again, very broadly speaking, advocacy to address gaps, unmet needs, and operational barriers. The group will really set the direction of all this once we get going. And right now we have a draft TOR that prospective members will be reviewing. So if you're interested in joining the task team, email me the name and contact information of the focal point representing your organization by the end of the week, so we can get you to feed into the TOR and join our first meeting. That first meeting, we don't have a date set yet. It's going to take place in August, and we'll get that. We'll announce that as soon as we have it. And I'll put my email address in the chat for you to reach out. But I think that's really it from us, unless Saba, Stephanie, or Jennifer want to add anything. Just a little intro to our task team.
Stephanie jump in and very quickly in a couple of minutes mention, just building on what Anne mentioned about the minimum service package, and Catherine as well, to just mention a little bit, because I think I really want to give a shout out to Stephanie, who really followed this issue very closely to make sure that we could try to get GBV integrated. And we had a number of meetings that Stephanie organized with a number of our core members. So Steph, I just want to give you a chance to say something quickly about the process.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. And thank you, Saba and John, for sort of summarizing all of the thoughts that have gone into this process. Perhaps just to start one step back and say that MHPSS came out of the strategy consultation for the current GBV AoR strategy as one key area where members have expressed interest to work together, to exchange much more. And so from last September, I think, we started to organize a range of already small meetings, informal working group meetings, if you will, where we came together with AoR core members and exchanged on what the different organizations were doing on MHPSS, what were some areas where we were seeing prospect for working together. And also in this context and within this group, we were consolidating input and feedback on the MHPSS MSP. So that's something where we've been working really closely with Alison, who's the UNHCR consultant who's working on integrating protection inclusive of GBV and the other AoRs that are under the protection cluster into the MSP. Yeah, so we've had meetings, we've had consultations and discussions, a lot of written feedback. And in this process, sort of Saba and John have been supporting and have taken forward the stick to make it into a formalized TOR, since all of the members have expressed interest to take it further forward and establish a task team. Yeah, and right now we're waiting to hear back what is the final revisions of the MHPSS MSP to see hopefully all of our feedback that we've provided, all of the inputs on specific GBV sections have been integrated. Yeah, and then the group will be, of course, quite instrumental in taking that forward and also in seeing how the MSP can be field tested. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Stephanie. And really a lot of the, big shout out also to the members on this call who have supported by providing inputs and providing their time. We see it as critical. And just to finalize with saying it, we are, as an AoR, part of the MHPSS reference group annual work plan, where we started during their last annual meeting to have a dialogue about our views on having a survivor-centered approach in MHPSS work. And we just agreed that we need to have more engagement and dialogue on this issue. And so there is an upcoming webinar, or we'll figure out exactly what that will look like, but we have committed, and it's in their work plan, to have some kind of conversation that we see as like the beginning. It won't be a one-off, but really getting the dialogue going and looking at how to have a better focus. And I think what's exciting is it feels like the reference group is, especially I think with the clear increase of GBV during the COVID pandemic and how it's become more visible, the needs. It feels like people are listening more intently and perhaps hearing us. I feel like this has been something that's been going on for years, but it feels like there's a good opportunity and opening right now. And the fact that Carmen is on this call already is positive. So thank you for that, John, Saba, and Stephanie, and more information will be shared. Let us know your thoughts, your reflections. And I want to hand over, before we run out of time, to IRC, where we are going to hear about the MHPSS framework that they have created, and Gretchen is going to be sharing with us. And just to say, if I noticed that Philippe did put in the community of practice information into our chat, and Gretchen, you can say more, but there have been, I don't know if all three are finished at this point, but there's been a series of 3 webinars in the community of practice on this framework, and they've all been recorded, and all those recordings are available. So you can also get a much deeper dive and hear a lot more detail by listening to any of those recordings. So I will hand it over now to Gretchen from IRC.
Thanks so much, Jen. And I will just do a brief presentation because, as Jennifer said, there is definitely a more in-depth presentation that features some of the voices from our pilot countries on the GBV COP website or on YouTube channel. So I'll share that link as well for all of you to access. Just making sure you can see my screen.
Yes, perfectly.
Great. All right, so Women Rise is a gender-based violence psychosocial support framework and toolkit that was funded by USAID's BHA. And today I'll just be talking briefly about it. So you can access the full toolkit at the website listed here. I will put that in the site as well, in the chat as well. It's womenrise.gbvresponders.org. And the more in-depth COP presentation that we did is at this YouTube address. So I'll put both of those in the chat for you. So Women Rise is a 5-part toolkit that consists of a psychosocial support framework that is really focused on articulating what it looks like when GBV programs are providing MHPSS services and how those services are unique to MHPSS providers or to GBV providers because of the ways that we work, because of our theoretical backgrounds, our training, and our attitudes around survivor-centered care. It also includes GBV programming best practices that is really focused on what are the best practices for GBV programs in providing MHPSS services. Then there is a structured curriculum. It is an 8-week curriculum with the option for expansion and all of the supporting tools there. We also have what we're calling unstructured and semi-structured group guidance. This is really focused on how to strengthen the MHPSS impact of those informal group activities that we do in women and girls safe spaces quite a lot. And then we also have a section of other resources, recognizing that maybe the Women Rise curriculum does not work for every situation, does not work for every program. So we've provided other curriculums that we reviewed in this process that we think are really good and that can potentially be a fit, either to pair with Women Rise or to use instead of if it's a better fit for your programming. So just a little bit of extra resources there. So the project really is focused on improving capacity to deliver effective PSS activities to displaced women and girls, addressing gaps in guidance, which we've talked a lot about on this call today, particularly for facilitating group support sessions for women at risk and women survivors of GBV. And then, like I said, articulating that GBV psychosocial approach and what that is and means. So we really wanted to focus on the framework itself and really chose to articulate that GBV-centered psychosocial support work and MHPSS interventions are focused on and recognize that women's liberation is the ultimate vision and goal for that. Recognizing the impact of patriarchal cultures, sexism, oppression, how that intersects with racial oppression, age, gender, and disability. So really trying to focus on an intersectional feminist approach, what that means for your MHPSS approaches and how you deliver those services. And because of that, we came up with different pillars that are really the focus and how those translate into strategies that work towards women's liberation. So really seeking to empower individual women, emphasizing individual strengths, and then focusing on trust and relationship building between women to use their collective voice. We go much more in depth in that in the COP call. So. The GBV programming best practices are really focused on design and delivery. So looking at the services, the activities that you're doing and what changes depending on the types of activities that you're doing in terms of an MHPSS approach. And then the delivery, so staff, their needs, what they need for support, what they need for training, what they need for supervision, and then delivery, how they facilitate those sessions. That's really the focus of the best practices section, along with some do's and don'ts focused on group work. The bulk of the toolkit is really focused on the intervention itself, the curriculum and the supporting tools. So we really wanted to come up with something that was quite contextualizable and malleable to a degree for teams, to make it their own. To do this, we focused on emotional support and building connection between groups of women through an 8-week core session. There is the opportunity to add sessions. You see these little dotted blue lines. You can add sessions depending on the focus that you've chosen. There's also in session 6, the opportunity for the women to choose a difficult emotion that they want to focus on. So in session 5, they explore shame and self-blame, anger and grief. And then they decide in session 5 which one they'd like to focus on in session 6. Really to help with a sense of group ownership and to reinforce that collective empowerment of like, this is your group, you get to choose, you get to decide what's important for you as a group to focus on, and really trying to make it a collective experience, not a didactic experience that is just facilitators transmitting information. So as I said, there's 8 core sessions, and then there's additional sessions that you can add in. We do recommend that the first time a team runs this, they run the 8 core sessions only. And then once they've gotten through that, they can see about adding. There's the potential to add up to 4. I wouldn't do more than that. 12 weeks is quite a long group. And you can choose based on what women are reporting as what they want to focus on. You can also choose based on facilitator skill and training and support and what they're ready. Some of them do take a little bit more practice to do. So there's a lot of opportunity to contextualize the group and make it your own. I just briefly want to highlight the learning from the country pilots. On the COP call, Somalia, South Sudan, and Nigeria helped co-present. They were 3 of our pilot countries, and they really had some amazing results in piloting this and are quite excited to be continuing this work. Somalia really highlighted the opportunity to understand emotions and to find that connection, especially in a culture where emotional expression is quite strict and often not very open. The women really related to this and enjoyed finding this connection within the group. All of them reported increased confidence, increased trust with one another, and increased ability to engage in community activities, which were ultimate goals from the beginning. So we were super glad to see this come through and to see teams reporting this in their final outcome evaluations with women. I'm going very fast because I know we're short on time. So I just want to highlight the unstructured and semi-structured group guidance. It hasn't gotten a lot of attention in our presentations because everyone's so excited about the curriculum, but I actually think that this guidance is really important, and I'm hopeful that that it will be really helpful. The unstructured and semi-structured group guidance is really trying to give teams a tool to help them assess and modify their informal group activities intentionally to have a greater psychosocial support impact. We know that these activities are having a psychosocial impact. We've known that anecdotally for years, but there's not a lot of evidence, there's not a lot of measurement, and there's not a lot of reflection sometimes from donors of the importance of these activities in that way. So that idea of women's liberation and creating space for that and the space for that exploration really framed the unstructured and semi-structured group guidance. So we wanted to give teams a tool that allows them to look at what level are these groups really working at? Are they working at that individual level of self-reflection? Are they working at like a community level of building connection between women, or are they actively working at like that systemic level of change, of like understanding your rights? And if they're working at multiple levels, which level do you really want to focus on? Then looking at different types of empowerment, personal, psychosocial, cognitive, or socio-civic, and looking at, if we're working at one of these levels, which type of empowerment do we think we can really impact? That's a very brief explanation, and we can go more in depth, but I'm really hopeful that this brings a lot of potential structure and potential feedback for groups to be able, for teams to be able to recognize the impact of these groups. So I will stop there because we only have a couple minutes left. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And just to remind everyone that Philippe put into the chat how to link to the YouTube channel where the COP sessions, which will give much greater detail. And we literally have 2 minutes, but Carmen, do you want to say something very quickly? I feel terrible that we didn't open it up to you. I know you wrote something in the chat, but if you want to say something quick.
No worries. I put it in the chat because I'm coordinating these calls myself. I know how it is. So it's very difficult. Just to say once more that we hear you, that we are really, really, really interested in changing, that we think the campaign, the Time to Heal campaign, is a wonderful opportunity to open this dialogue and to use the opportunities in the last part of the year with the MHPSS summit in Paris, with all of these World Mental Health Day, those advocacy moments that open up at the end of the year. I really think they're going to be a great opportunity for us to keep on coming together. And really, that's I think there's a new moment for MHPSS. We are raising our profiles in the same way the GBV, I think, is one of the side effects of COVID, that it has given our fields of work the visibility they deserved. So once more, to open up our doors broadly, because we want to transform the things that have traditionally not worked well. I have a very personal interest in this side. So let us know how we can contribute. Let's keep on working together, and congratulations to everyone, because I think the things that have been presented today are really an example on how we can do more and better together. So just that from my side, and thank you so much, Jennifer.
Thank you. And we may look for you to be an advocate from the reference group side if our inputs to the MSP are not accepted. We're still waiting for feedback. So we might need a block of internal and external folks to push on that.
Absolutely.
So we will keep you in mind.
Absolutely. And the MSP is actually not a reference group product, but we are there advocating
yes, I know,
strongly.
But it's good to
and
have some allies
guys.
within the reference group in any case.
Absolutely.
Okay,
and we come from many of us now come from a survivor's lens. So please just keep it going.
Okay. So just very quickly, and speaking from the survivor-centered approach, the other area we're advocating for a survivor-centered approach is the PSEA area. And just to say very quickly, from the 21st of 23rd to September, sorry, there are going to be workshops with GBV actors together with PSEA actors. So this is another area where we're looking to push on a survivor-centered approach. I mean, that's a very critical part of our advocacy and all spaces. So, and then also just to announce for people to know that it's going on, we'll have a presentation, another call, but UNHCR is working together with the GBV AoR on SOPs, newly revised SOPs for GBV work at the field level. And so we'll give more details on that in the future. And there's so much going on PSS that we couldn't fit it all into this call. So on the next call, we are inviting Saba to talk about some of the products that are coming out on MHPSS from the WHO side. We didn't have time today, but Saba, we will definitely be inviting you to expand on that in the next call. So we have another call coming up already. And then so I'm afraid we're going to have to all get off, but the recording of this will be available. And if you have any questions that weren't answered, please send them to us by email and we will connect you to the person who can respond. Thank you all very much. And we're really excited that we had such a great engagement and look forward to hearing from you in our next call. Thank you, everyone.